Good evening and welcome to night 4. If you haven't watched 1 through 3, please stop, go back and watch 1 through 3, and then we'll see you back here when you're ready. Please give me about 5 minutes while we play a little bit of music and we get some people on. But welcome. So, thank you again for joining us. Good evening. Welcome to all. And to those we cannot see. So this is night 4. 2 more nights and we're done. So, the three Hermetic laws we're going to talk about. The first one is the Law of Perpetual Transmutation of Energy. That is a mouthful. The Law of Perpetual Transmutation of Energy simply states that at all times, energy is shifting and changing. So, this means that energy is just energy. Essentially, there is no such boundary of good energy or bad energy. Someone's negative emotions, when we get them, we have the choice. We can accept them as they are, or we can just take them as energy and shift them to be what we want them to be. Because it's free energy. Right? So, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy ensuring that whatever we're going through can change. There is the potential for all energy to change. The next law is technically two laws, but they're almost the same thing, so I'm doing them together. And that's the law of reciprocation and the law of cause and effect. Okay? So the law of reciprocation is a specific form of cause and effect. The law of reciprocation says that what you put out into the world you will be rewarded for. You will be reciprocated in kind for them, for those things. Okay? The law of cause and effect says that for every action, there is a reaction. Now, this is different than Newton's laws in physics of cause and effect, right? They're not the same thing. Remember, we're talking about metaphysical laws. And in the metaphysical plane, the law of cause and effect simply says, for every action, there is a reaction. Okay? So, if I throw a stone into the air, that stone will travel in whatever direction I threw it until it is met with a force that changes that cause. Right? At the same time, if I throw a stone at a wall, that stone's going to shatter or come right back at me. Right? Cause and effect. And the first cause is me throwing the stone. The second cause is it hitting that wall or that immovable object. Right? The third law we're going to cover today is the law of relativity. The law of relativity is important when we're going through something because it states that every person will go through a series of challenges, or tests, if you will, in their lifetime. And those challenges are relative to their current life experiences. It is through these challenges that we grow and our relative understanding of our reality expands. So, the old adage of, well, it's all relative, is kind of true. If you've gone through something similar, then you have a relative understanding of what you're going through. If you've never gone through something similar, then you don't have a relative understanding. And this is a new exploration for you. But it is part of the law of relativity. Right? So the part of self that we're going to talk about tonight is the law of divine awareness or divine perception. It's okay. I don't need it.
You don't need it?
No.
Okay. It got really dark.
Okay. The law of divine awareness or the divine perception, or correction, the part of self of divine awareness is connecting us to the fact that everything's connected, and because everything's connected, we have the ability to have foresight, to be able to perceive what's coming, what will be, and what may come to pass. You can sharpen these skills by using an ancestral form of divination. Until you find an ancestral form of divination, I'm going to teach you how to divine using a coin with yes-no questions. So, the coin should be precious, fairly large. This is a 2-ounce silver coin, so it's extremely large, right? And you want to start by training it. So, you tell it every day. You carry it with you. Make it part of your person, make it part of your everyday carry. You pull it out the first 3 days, and every time you pull it out, you turn it over so that you can see heads, if you want heads to be yes. And you say, this means yes. And then you put it back in your pocket. And when you feel it in your pocket a little bit later, you pull it out, and you put it on heads, and you say, this means yes. Okay? And then you do this for 3 days. At the end of the 3 days, now when you pull the coin out, you flip the coin. And you can flip the coin however you want. I just simply flip it in the air so it spins out of control. I catch it in my right hand. I flip it over and put it in my left hand. And whatever it tells me, I tell it what it means. This means tails. Or this is tails, so this means no. And then later on, I'll do it again. And it landed on heads. And so I'll tell it, this means yes. And we'll do that for 3 days. And then the last 3 days, you would pull it out of your pocket and you would ask it, show me yes. And you'd flip it. And it's either going to land on heads or tails. In this case, it landed on heads. And so you praise it. Yes, that is yes. Thank you. If it lands wrong, pay attention to a couple of things. What did it do? That's why I like a 2-ounce one. What did it do in this hand? When I caught it, did it land sideways like this and then roll in my hand? As I flipped from one hand to the other, did it change its mind? Right? So these are all things making it possible to help me understand how the coin's telling me yes and no. At the end of the 9th day, now you either trust the coin or you don't. If you don't, get rid of the coin and start over with a new coin. But this is a simple, modern, and probably ancient way of doing a quick yes-no divination. Right? And let's face it, money's been around a long time, so odds are people have been doing this for a couple of thousand years, right? And this is really just to get you until you find an ancestral divination that works for you. Although I use it, I've used it for over 10 years. I trust it more than any other form because when you flip a coin, as long as it's in my hand and I'm focused on it, I have the power to make it tell me anything I want. When I flip it, it leaves my hand and it travels through the air and I no longer have control. And even though when it touches my hand again, I'm touching it, I still don't have control of it because as soon as it hits my hand, I flip it over and that's it. That seals the fate. Whatever has happened, I can't change. It's done. It's in the past. So now when I look at it, no, I get an answer. The other part of this is knowing how to ask your questions so that they're very pointed yes-no questions. That takes time. You'll get there. Be patient. But this is an option. This is part of that divine awareness. We don't need the coin. We don't need tarot. We don't need any other divining tool. My mother-in-law, who swears that magic is fake, because she comes from that generation, and that's okay. Her indoctrination is hers, not ours. But she has divine awareness. She has random premonitions, and she knows which ones are truthful and which ones aren't. And she'll call Miss Shaw up and she'll say, I just had a premonition. But Mom, you don't believe in that stuff. I know, but I just had one. And she'll spill it, right? So this is part of the 10 parts of self. We all have it. It's in us. We tend to lose it through indoctrination. Most of the 10 parts of self, past thought, we begin to lose through indoctrination. And thought can be manipulated in indoctrination, right? So the meditation tonight is super critical. It is the conclusion of how we bring those other 3 meditations together. So, we start with a mindful meditation, get those daily thoughts out of our head, and get them going where they need to be. Then we do the Wim Hof breathing, and we do an awareness meditation. This heightens our senses, makes us more privy to information that we're going to receive. We pull the dot forward just for a second, and then we allow the dot to change and take us to our spiritual sacred space. This is called the Ve, V-E. And the Ve is a place that you control 100% with your will. It can be influenced by the laws that exist in our reality when you want it to, but it doesn't have to be. And you can alter some of parts of our reality so that you can tell the difference in certain things. This is the stepping stone to actually creating the above space in as above, so below, which is super important, right? Because if we can't create it in our subjective imagination at 100%, how will we ever create it here where we only have 75%? Right? So, Ms. Shaw, can you hand me the drum? This one is good to do with a drum. Somewhere around 75 to 85 beats per minute. So it sounds a little bit like this. You can use a metronome to help you get used to that rhythm. You can also find traveling meditations on YouTube. Traveling meditations are the key because we are traveling from this world. We're leaving our body behind. We're using our appearance part of self, and we're projecting ourselves into our Ve. Okay? I will do guided meditation on one of the Sundays on how to do this, because it'll take us an hour, 30 minutes by itself easily. So, but this is your creative space. Wherever it is, make it someplace that you're happy. If you like being in grass fields, then start with a grass field in your mind. Build an altar space there. Build a way to commune with your ancestors. Build a way to gain knowledge, like a library. If you're training for something, build what you need to be able to train for it. Because what we do in our Ve has a direct correspondence to what happens to us in our reality. Tesla used a similar technique like this in order to create his inventions. In his writings, he talked about he would go into his lab in his mind, and he would test theories, because it didn't cost him anything to test theories in his mind. It was free, and he would do this for hours, weeks, until he thought he had it. And when he thought he had it, he would go experiment in his lab. And this helped him drastically, immensely, right? So, with that, we can use it a similar way in our metaphysical reality to assist our magic. When we want to put together a working, we can go into our Ve and we can create a representation of our reality with the working having effect. And then we can piece together the working to ensure it has an effect, and then we can come to our reality and put it together. Okay? The more you do this, the more experience your Ve will have, and in turn, your experiments in your Ve will be more accurate. Okay? So, in conclusion, if everything changes and nothing stays the same, and we have divine awareness that makes it possible to set forth in motion the changes we want, why would any of us be living a life not created by ourselves? The answer is simple: indoctrination. We are indoctrinated with the power of language. This is a forever occurrence. When we're born to a mother and a father who wants us to be aware of our world, wants to teach us things. The problem is, they're already indoctrinated into the world. So, when mom teaches us what a glass of water is, she teaches us that this is water. This is something we drink and we bathe in. And that's usually it. But water is the primary source of life for all carbon-based things. Without water, our bodies cannot live. Without water, we can't process nourishment from other things. And most of the other things that we consume need water to survive as well. So the minute mom says, this is water, it's just something you drink and bathe in, nothing to be afraid of, we're being indoctrinated. She's not lying to us, but she's not telling us a whole truth either. It's not until we get older that we're told in some classroom that water is the life-giving force to all things. And by then we're indoctrinated to, well, water's just water. So we miss it. And we frequently don't ever recognize the value of water again. This happens in all things. Mom wants to give an easy answer, or dad wants to give an easy answer why you can't go out now. It's too dark. It's an easy answer. It's not really the truth, but it's an easy answer because anything else, he'd have to sit you down and explain why he doesn't really want you to go outside. And so he just tells you, it's too dark for you to go out and play. Or he tells you, make sure you're home before dark. Well, as young children, we begin to think there's something in the dark. If dad doesn't want us out in the dark playing, maybe there's something in the dark that can be harmful to us. And this is how at 4 or 5, sometimes 6, a child will pick up this unnatural fear of the dark. Mom and dad told them to be afraid of the dark because of something they said or the way they said it. Again, mom and dad aren't lying, but our awareness, our knowledge base, if mom and dad don't want me to do something that's usually dangerous for me, so maybe I should be afraid of the dark or the stove or water. And all of these are unnatural. We're only born with 2 natural fears. The fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. You take a baby who's barely sitting up and you hold him up high, he becomes nervous. He clutches to hold on, right? Because he doesn't want to fall. He hasn't experienced falling. So this is a natural phenomenon that occurs. If you make a loud noise behind a baby, similarly, he freaks out, gets scared, because this is a natural fear. All other fears are taught to us somehow through experience or through indoctrination. So pay attention to the things that you become concerned with, the language you use, because if everything is constantly changing and our awareness of the future makes it possible for us to create a future that we want, why are we experiencing things that we don't want at all? So I hope you had a good night. Thank you so much for joining me again. Ms. Shaw and I appreciate and love each and every one of you. And we'll talk tomorrow.